Okay. Let's go live. Let's go live. Let's go. Okay. A little channel. I'm going to go on to my Instagram. Okay, going live on Instagram. Okay. Okay. So, okay. Okay. So, today I wanted to talk about. I've just been thinking a lot about how it's so difficult for people to face reality. Like, I just don't get it. I really don't get it. So, I'm going to put my little YouTube handle and my Instagram so people can come over. But yeah, it's just a really interesting situation where I'm just looking around and it's really, really difficult. Hey, it's really difficult for people to like face reality. And I think we underestimate how difficult it is for people, like legitimately, because we have a whole culture, a whole society, a whole reality that's clearly has a lot of things going wrong, you know? There's a lot of change, not necessarily good change. Some people would say that it's good change, but Job, as Thorben said, it's because they're flooded with emotions. I know. We need to get into that too. We're going to get to that, the idea of them being flooded with emotions, because that's a key point of it. And that's really critical because, like, while I'm doing research on this video I want to make around how difficult it is for people to just face reality, because if you're seeing something, like so many people see it, you see the southern border, you see the news, you see the economy, you see all of these things happening, yet for some reason we can't acknowledge it's happening. We're just still like, what's going on? Why is it happening? People are stuck in their ways and don't want to let go of what they thought was true. Even if it shows them proof, they won't believe it. Exactly. They're not trying to believe it. But the big problem we have right now is not that there aren't enough smart people. It's not that we don't have enough skills. It's not that we don't have the technology. It's not that we're lacking in resources. None of that is true. If literally right now, everyone who didn't believe in the minority, like, I don't want to say minority because that's going to be a trigger word. If people didn't follow the agenda, because it's not the majority of people who are following this agenda or want this agenda. It's a small group of people who want this agenda. But if people didn't follow along with it and actually were proactive, it wouldn't exist at all. Like, even with the minority being a trigger word, even with the like media and all these things, even with the Transformers, even with whatever it is, it's so insignificant. It's not that many people. It used to be not that many people, but they've gotten like a substantial, a substantial amount of children and now young adults and people at the upper echelons, in these schools to push this reality, to paint vivid pictures about this reality, even if it doesn't exist. Because the one thing you have to realize is that people don't recognize reality. Perception is the only thing that matters. What they perceive to be reality is the only thing that matters. It can be totally off. It can be totally wrong. But if they perceive something to be real, then it's real. So the real question is not about reality. It's about, or making them recognize it. It's about making sure they're able to perceive it. So it's a lot about conditioning their mind, conditioning what they perceive, what they believe. Yeah, Louisiana Sister Squad, is brainwashing and propaganda one and the same? Seems like you can't have one. Well, it's brainwashing, propaganda and brainwashing are pretty similar. Like it's taking someone, and this is what I want to refer back to the comment that was just placed about a flood of emotions. So the one thing that you need to recognize, well, there's three things I want to break down. The human mind is not a single organ. It doesn't have like one job. Does that make sense? The heart, let's say, you can picture the heart and its functions, and it just, pushes blood through. It has sort of one unified goal. Whereas the mind, the human brain, is multiple separate pieces that just work in harmony together. If that makes sense. I mean, a lot of the human body is like that, but with the mind, it's like even more pronounced just because of the way it's evolved over time. Like we have parts of the brain, the reptile brain. You've heard of that, the reptile brain. That's the earlier version of the brain. That's the brain we had at lower levels of consciousness. We were more of like the animal state. Yeah, we had the reptile brain. And then we evolved over time to have, ultimately this frontal neocortex, this part of the brain that's able to do all of these things that we identify as human, our creativity, our regulation, our analysis, all of these advanced things. So when people are flooded with emotion, okay, when the propaganda, when the brainwashing, when the media is just controlling and manipulating, flooding people's emotions, they're not using, okay, this is another thing of evolutionary, like how the brain has evolved. They're not using the higher parts of their brain, the parts of their brain that will use critical thinking. They're using the reptile brain. They're using the fight or flight brain because of a myriad of reasons. They're using that part of the brain primarily because, you just want to survive. You're not really thinking about it. You're just reacting. And over time, unfortunately, the propaganda conditions people, so they just stop using the part of their brain that would have critical thinking. That's why it's like, why can't they recognize it? Why can't you have a conversation with them? Why can't they use logic? Why is it always emotion? Because they're not using the critical thinking aspects of their brain. Not everyone thinks the same. And propagandists, people in the media, thanks Louisiana Sister Squad, people in the media, they know how to do this. Propagandists know how to manipulate you. They know how to manipulate you without you even being aware of it. And I know that sounds like, oh, well, I understand it. I recognize it. I've watched the news. I get it. But the thing is, they're using parts, they're able to get into your brain that you do not honestly, you do not directly control those parts of your consciousness in your mind. Now, let me say this again. Propagandists, with their brainwashing, quote unquote, they are able to manipulate your mind without you recognizing it. because they can access parts of your brain that do not respond to you and your logic and your thinking and your rationale. You have to think about it. You witness this all the time just with yourself. You witness this happening constantly. Let's say you have a habit. You have a bad habit. Do you just sit down and say, I think I'm not going to scarf a bunch of donuts. I think I'm not going to be lazy. I think I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. You might have a lot of bad habits, but that doesn't mean you can directly control them because they're part of your subconscious. Think about breathing. Hey, think about breathing. You don't think about it, but it happens, right? So this is really important. Yeah, suggestive state of mind. Yeah, this is really important thing to recognize because it all falls into why is it people don't recognize, why is it these leftists or these other people are not able to recognize what's happening and able to be proactive and do something to stop it or even respond to your basic logic. They will literally, if you ask them, if you don't trigger them, of course, because again, that reptile brain and their ideology in the cult also programs, kill switches. That's when they get angry and they're like, don't tell me this. Don't talk about this. I'm not going to listen to you. They have kill switches, all of these things that I'll go into. Oh my God, Zendaya said cognitive parasites. Parasites can make the brain think to do certain things. Exactly. That's literally what it's like as well. It's like a parasite, something that's in your awareness and your consciousness. But going back to why is it people can't recognize reality? It's there. You see the southern border, it's being flooded. You see the economy, it's trash. You see our military is falling away. You see our rights are being taken away, etc., whatever. And you can't have a conversation with you. They refuse to recognize what's happening. They can't acknowledge it. No matter how much proof, no matter how much evidence, they can't do it. And that's because they're stuck. They're not able to perceive what you're saying. They're so emotionally invested. They're so overwhelmed. Their brains are literally broken to the point where they're stuck in this one set mindset. They can't use all the faculties of their mind to explore reality. And literally Trudeau, I know. That's why they're able to lie to these people into their face. Say that they didn't do something that they clearly did. Like how they didn't force us to do certain medical procedures, take certain medical medications. They didn't do that. That's propaganda. That's a lie. Hey, what's up? They're able to do that because they know they have them stuck. So if we know that these people are stuck in this perception, if we know that they're not going to recognize, what do we do now? And that's a big, big question. And that's something that needs to continue to be explored and worked on. Because if we don't recognize that the strategies we're using to try to basically win them over to the side that wants freedom, that wants dignity, wants to not be enslaved. I don't know. I mean, wants to not go into the Great Reset. Oh, and did you notice that they're not really, hyping up the Great Reset as much? They're just sort of like, oh, that's not that's not number one. Thankfully, psychopaths are very arrogant, so they let a lot of things go. But we have to realize that people, they're not ready to face reality just from one or two conversations. They're not ready for it. And it's going to take conditioning, and it's going to take education, and it's going to take leadership from everyday people, honestly, because this is a guerrilla war at this point. Not in a violent sense, but you know what I'm saying? It's like everyone has to be involved in this because it's an infection. It's a parasite that has infected so many people. This idea of leftism, this idea of chaos. The wokeness has infiltrated every element of social culture media. It's so oversaturated to the point that it gets absorbed subconsciously by the population. Exactly. It's a sponge. It's a sponge that's just been so oversaturated with this. And luckily, so many people have woken up. But, unfortunately, so many people are just so seriously infected with this mental parasite. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna keep using that. I cry in frustration for these people. It's honestly sad how crazy they are. I know, it's so sad. If we can't agree that men are men and babies are alive, what are we gonna do? I know, it's so far down the 1984. It is a ballad of principalities, and I'm actually working on a video where I talk about why spiritual people are the ones who are going to make it through this, because you cannot, if you are of this world, if you only care about this matrix, I hate saying matrix, but if you only care about like clout and getting, whatever from this mundane reality, this like honestly, this garbage world, this clown world, then you're not going to be able to make it, because you have to have something more, you have to have something deeper that you're clinging to, and not just whatever the news tells you, or your senator or your teacher. Before really getting to regular politics. Yeah, it's good to get in. It's good to understand about the corruption before you get into regular politics. I know, Obama was so bad. I don't know, Asian. Oh, thanks, Julius. I appreciate it. So it's just it's a big challenge, but it's disturbing because so many people just will not face reality. So many people will not face reality, and no matter what you say to them, no matter what you do, like, it just seems like there's nothing there, and they just cannot recognize it. And it's because their brains are conditioned to be stuck and not be able to recognize and perceive what's happening. They cannot see what is objectively in front of their face. And I know it's hard to believe that can be possible. I know it's crazy. It's like, how can that even happen to people? But that's why it's important to understand, how propaganda works, how they condition people, all of these things. Because once you understand how they do it, you can understand how to reverse engineer it, how to reverse it. It's just the same set of tools, but it's like the human mind is a ship, okay? You have all of these different levers and ropes and knots and all these different components. And every time I go on a boat, I'm just like, I can't even. That's so much. But all of these components that go into steering a ship and, being successful to be able to get to your destination, those components can be used to go in one direction or the other. And propaganda, and especially the globalist agenda, is using all of those components of the mind and steering people off into the oblivion, perpetual slavery. So it's like, we can learn what those components are, and we can just push people over. And it is depressing, and it's demoralizing, and it's sad, but at the same time, if they're already conditioned to just follow whatever seems catchy, you can just sort of replace what they think. Yeah. Women's intuition be something till you realize that women get taken advantage of all the time. We need strong men. Yeah, women have intuition, but they also lack the ability to defend themselves or advocate for their best interests, unfortunately. Women are very limited in that regard. Men, not so much. Not so much. They can say pretty tunnel vision on what they want. So, but unfortunately, women, just because of our unique biological requirements, we're way more empathetic. We are just conditioned to sacrifice for other whatever, just so people don't, just so, kids can make it. And that's sad. And we can see that with the Transformers. Like, we can see the Transformers, like, I mean, they're like, I have to give it to these guys, because it's like the whole, I could talk endlessly about the diversity agenda, which is not diversity. It's literally just everyone else except for white males. But they were like, look, if we're not going to make it this way, we're going to make it another way, which they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way. And I have to give them credit for that. They are not going to stop. How propaganda works. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Oh, yeah. Those who believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. No, definitely. Because you can see that, honestly, you can see that in so many aspects of our society right now. What we think is like ridiculous, how Louisiana Sister Squad called out how it's so frustrating that you can't get them to agree that men are men, and babies are alive. That's because they need to get you separated from reality to that extent. They need to make it so you can't, even so something is real, it's obvious, you won't recognize it, and you can override that. And unfortunately, ideologies and that sort of conditioning, you can do it. I mean, the human mind is pretty pliable. There's a lot you can do to the human mind through trauma. And I want to talk more about trauma conditioning too, because it's actually really interesting. It's like really, really interesting. And not a lot of people really, hey, what's up? Common sense culture. Not a lot of people really understand how those things work. So it's like, if you see this problem, people are not able to recognize reality. The answer is not to say, oh, I can't believe that they're like this, or be upset about it. It's that we need to understand how they got there so that we can reverse it. Because honestly, like, if they're sheep, which I think they are, because sheep aren't, they're not thinking too deep, okay? They're just responding. And this isn't an insult to sheep or people. This is more just where they are. There's a lot of things that go into making someone a sheep. You can go down to the amount of like nutrition they have. Like, if you don't have the excess calories, the proper nutrition, if you're poisoned, you're not going to be able to think really well. You're going to have brain fog. We've all heard of that. So there's a lot of factors. It's not just you're just a dummy. That thing. It's sad. Yeah, trauma therapy is real. The brain is incredible. The brain can create an entire enclosure for that trauma and just push it away and have that trauma like manipulating you without you notice. John says, can we talk about the reptilian brain tactic to make you want logic and a better life? Yeah, so the reptilian brain trap. Yeah, John, thanks for bringing that up. So in the beginning if you're just joining, in the beginning we did talk about how the brain is this multi-compartmentalized organ that has evolved over time. It's not just one brain. You have multiple brains in your head that are just working in unison. And when they don't work in unison, we can see that. Like, if they don't work in unison, there's a lot of problems. It's pretty apparent. But ultimately, it just sends information to different places and all of those things. And when you go through a lot of conditioning, when you go through trauma, when you go through all of these things, you get stuck in the reptilian brain because you're not going to use up your precious resources for survival thinking things through. You're just not. Think about if you go through a traumatic event, if you just got attacked, or you just you had a bad childhood, like all of these different things, you're stressed out about the even just daily stress. Because I work in user experience in the tech industry, and there's so much that you have to analyze when it comes to interfaces and things like that, like the apps that we use. You have to counter and factor in how much stress someone's going to be under, because their ability to process information, if they're in their stress response, goes down dramatically. And this is just day to day. So if you factor in someone who's literally been conditioned over months and years, their brain can be stuck in that stress response, and that's it. And that's why the Marxism is so appealing to people, because your brain, I don't want to jump over to too many things. And I love all the conversations. I love all the conversations happening, like Louisiana Sister Squad sharing about her trauma therapy on Instagram, and all the people in the chat room here on YouTube. But there's a lot that we can learn from each other, and there's a lot going on here when it comes to why people get stuck in this reptilian brain and they can't break out of it. So to get back to what John was saying about helping them get out of the reptilian brain and using logic and things like that, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors you have to consider, like a lot. Now, I'm working on a series too called The Mind of a Propagandist, because I think you have to understand no, you don't have to be quiet. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to acknowledge your story and everything. There's a lot of factors you have to consider. The first thing you have to realize, and the propagandist the people who make this media and the brain control and the social engineers and all this stuff, they don't think at the level that we do. They have to think of a lot more factors. We're just thinking about, I'm going to get on TV, or I'm going to get on streaming and have a conversation and make a meme and do this and that. We think pretty basic. Or I'm going to talk to somebody, have a conversation, whatever it is. We're very basic. Propagandists, people who actually know how to manipulate populations of people, they have a myriad of factors that they consider. They consider the diet, the nutrition, the stress levels, the ego responses. They understand human behavior. They understand all of these things and how they can chip away at it. And the sheeple just sort of just go, I know, Michael, the sheeple just go along with it. They just go along. They don't have the capacity. So if we want to get people out of the reptile brain, moving on, because we understand why people don't perceive things. I hope you can understand why it's difficult for people to perceive objective reality, even though you explained it and it's there. Hello. I'm gonna, let me see. 1 second. I had to get somebody out of my, okay. Somebody just said, do you understand OnlyFans? I'm like, people are so funny. Okay. So we understand why they're there. Now that we understand and acknowledge that they're in their reptilian brain, their whatever it is, the first thing that we have to acknowledge is their ego. Because the ego, and this is something, don't get tripped up if you're like, what? The ego is a very complex topic. It's a very deep topic. And it's not something that's very discussed. We know about our ego. We know that we want to look good. We don't want people embarrassing us. Those are certain factors of the ego, but the ego is much more than that. It's the survival mechanism for your existence in society, in life, okay? Is who you are. So the ego so the ego is going to be the number one thing. It's going to be the number one thing. So that's why a lot of the techniques of shaming people and calling them dumb and making them feel ostracized and making them feel like they're sinful, or all of these techniques, they're not, or just telling someone, oh, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong, and this is why I'm right, and blah, 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 if you're having a regular conversation. The ego is going to be that door bouncer, that bouncer at the door of their ability to perceive things. You can't even get in to have a real conversation with the human being if you attack their ego. It's going to say, no, I'm shutting down. Guilt is a huge thing. People use their egos to avoid guilt. They use the ego as sort of a guard to keep them from feeling negative emotions, perceiving negative things, feeling, any sort of bad way, or breaking out of their definition of who they are. So the first thing you cannot do if you're dealing with someone who's just stuck and can't perceive reality, the first thing you don't do is to challenge their ego. Like, find any way narcissistic. No, it's not narcissistic. Narcissism is like an extreme version of it. I'm talking about just a regular person. If you're having a conversation with them, they're going to not want to be proved. They don't want to be proved that they're wrong. People are going to be constantly fighting and want to argue with you and tell you they're right, or find a way to be right because of their ego, right? So if you're trying to open them up to see something, attacking them with that sort of thing, it's not a good move. Okay, Timbus says in Instagram, he's like, not necessarily. Many are able to check it. Ego is necessary. We are all narcissistic. Okay, so yes, that is true. But again, we're talking about, so if you're just joining, we're talking about people who are stuck in their reptile brain. They're not using higher level thought processes. They're not thinking, hey, let me think about this. Oh, thanks for getting the badge. I appreciate it. They're not using their higher level brain. They're stuck. They're cut off from it, both like emotionally because of their emotional, overwhelm. Physically, they can't even process the information. The information isn't moving from their reptile brain to their cortex to process. Like, you have to understand, they have the parking brake on and they're stuck in this lower level. I'm just going to get mad. I'm just going to pop off. I'm just going to do all these things. They're not able to do what we need them to do. So we have to, exactly as SF Republic Assembly says, we do have to teach them how to develop critical thinking skills. But in order to do that, to even begin that, we have to be able to approach them without triggering their ego response, without making them fly away and get angry. Because the more angry they're going to get, the less they're going to hear from you. Language, at some point, it's such sheeple mentality, they can't even hear what you're saying. They can't even process language. They're regressing. And I know a lot of you guys understand, but regression, have you heard of that, where you're regressing? You're not moving forward, you're going back to primitive behavior. They're regressing so far, they can't even hear what you're saying. You're just wah, 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 and they're just going to be like Cardi B, popping off, snapping off, going crazy. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it can get. And I know a lot of you would have experienced that, where you're talking to a leftist, you're talking to somebody, and they're just like, no, blah, 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 women's reproductive rights, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, What? Like, what are you even talking about? Yes, John, appeal to their ego. And this is something you have to be, again, you have to be very strategic about it. Because what I was saying, the propagandist, the person who's a social engineer, the people who are manipulating society, they do it very cleverly, okay? They do it very subtly. They do it very well. They're appealing. You have to appeal to their ego. You have to sweeten them up. You have to find a way for them to relax, be in a low stress state. If you think of it, if you can detach yourself from it, if you're having a conversation, you can detach yourself from whether you have to prove you're right or this or that. You could just focus on, how do I make it so this person is relaxed and calm? Okay? How do I move them into that state of mind so that when they see me, they don't just, the relative, that friend, that person you have to associate with. As soon as they see you, they just get all, ugh, and they just like tense up and get angry. Like, when you attack their ego and you try to tell them that they're wrong about who they are and what they believe, that's a threat. That is danger to them. Because again, reptile brain, sheeple, they're not thinking, oh, this is a debate. They're thinking this is life or death. Everything is life and death. That's why they react so disproportionately. It's like, I'm just trying to have a conversation and they're going to like, go crazy. Orange man bad. Yeah, the truth, Julia says, the truth is Spanish to liberal English. I know. So it's like they can't even hear you. They can't even process. So we have to think about these things. It takes a lot of addressing the ego to be someone who can effectively go out and manipulate people. Because you have to address your ego and you have to address their ego. Because that ego is, I hate saying ego so much. I know it's so cliche, but it's like really, really critical. It's really, really critical to be able to do that. Because once you can get their ego to like you, once you can get the bar manager, once you can get the guy at the door basically to like you, then you're in, right? Then you're in, then you get in, it's smooth, you're in there. You can go do what you need to do. So much delusion and lack of accountability. Yes, unfortunately. Unfortunately. So I don't know. I don't know if that analogy works, but it's like you're trapped. You're on the outside. They're not processing you at the level that you need to be processed. So you have to get through their ego. So, because propagandists, do you think that the Marxists were worried about in 1910 whether or not people believe them? Do you think they cared in the 1940s if people believed them? Do you think they cared all the way up until, decade, 2 decades ago if people thought what they believed was real and they agreed with them? No, but they keep beating their message and they keep feeding into the message to people. They keep appealing to people's egos. They keep saying, hey, if you become part of our ideology, you're going to be exalted. You're going to be a queen. You're going to be, you're going to have more power. You're going to be recognized. You're going to be a better person. Whatever, like what? Kind of like they have inverted Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, it is pretty. I mean, yeah, at a certain point, John, when they get so conditioned, they don't even care about their family. They don't care about safety. They just care about the ideology and being right. Okay, Sunday I said, all of this can be seen on the strip club sales floor, by the way. The world is really ran like a mid-level strip club. Everyone is, I swear to God, it's so true. It's so true. If you observe any situation where there's like sales and exchange happening, it's the same thing. You're trying to manipulate someone to do something. They want some reward at the end. They're hoping that if they do what you say or believe you and exchange whatever action, they'll get it. It is up to us to come down to their understanding and bring them up. I love that, Tempest, I love that. We're not talking about trauma bonding with a narcissist. We're not actually trauma. See, we're not drinking our own Kool-Aid. Like, we might sit with them and be like, okay, that's what you believe? Let me explain. So the first step to getting people to open up and be comfortable with you without you saying, oh yes, BLM, oh yes, I agree, oh, you're just like giving them all these compliments. I bet you could write a book on it. Giving all these compliments is to do the first part of a very important part, is gathering information about them. You have to understand, and this ties into, so I hope this isn't too confusing, because a lot of this stuff, it bleeds into several different aspects of like human behavior, understanding. Like anthropologists, for example, they're the ones who study culture and how people work and how they interact. They spend a lot of time just asking questions. They're not directly there to be like, oh, you know what? You shouldn't eat food like that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't build your house like that. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a right thing. They don't do that. They're not, They're not telling them, oh, you're wrong. This is how I believe. This is what I think. They're just observing. They're just, oh, so you do this? So we're doing this now? This is what we're doing? They're just observing. And because people love attention and they love being acknowledged, you can just disarm someone by asking them questions about themselves with sincerity. Because you should be sincere, because you need to understand what is that core need that they are trying to fulfill. What is it they're looking for? Because all of these people out here, these people out here who are Marxists and on the left, we already know they're not going to get this utopia they're being promised. We already know that. It's happened multiple times in history. Yuri Bezmenov even talks about how the useful idiots, the people who push these agendas, are the first ones to go because they're not needed anymore. So they're never going to get what they want. And whatever they're going about with this leftism is not really what they want. What they want is to be able to feel fulfilled and feel like they're not bad people and to win at something. So you have to sit there and you have to talk and ask them questions. The more information you know on someone, the easier it is to manipulate them. Because listen, I'm just going to tell you, in my podcast, like this show, whatever, I don't even know. For me, I'm going to talk like a propagandist. I'm not going to talk like, oh, that's good or that's bad. It doesn't matter. This is about manipulation. This is about persuasion. This is about controlling behavior and controlling society. That's what we're talking about. We have to get at a higher level and realize it's not about good or bad, because it's the same tools. It's like, what are you going to build? You can build a prison or you can build a house with the same set of tools. And we just need to recognize what those tools are. So in order to build a house, in order to build a successful society, we have to be able to understand what people want and what they need and what they like and what they're looking for. What are their core beliefs? What are their core needs? And you have to get that through talking to them. And people, question everything. People don't want to do that. They just want to get into a debate with these people who are sheeple and can't recognize anything. Just going off whatever CNN said, whatever. And we want to get into debate with them. As if they have the capacity. Even if they did have the capacity, they're not going to use it. They're going to recite and alliterate the same bullshit. The same stuff that they hear. These people are going through critical consciousness where they see the world view the lenses of a victim. Yeah. Hating their own country. Yeah. So, Cold Hammer. That's so accurate. We were talking about perception earlier, because they see and they perceive everything through a victim, through the victim lens. And because they believe that they are victims, they're going to act like victims. Their decisions what they want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like. It's all based around their idea that they're victims. And if their ego believes that they're victims, if that's what the ego truly believes, and this is how insidious the ego is. If the ego believes it, they're going to go ahead and make sure to perpetuate that state. Because the ego doesn't care about what's right or wrong. It cares about maintaining instability for your existence in this society, in this world. It's just sort of like, again, it's like that parking brake, okay? It gets you stuck. They're stuck. That ego makes them stuck. And so we have to unstick them. We have to start getting them out of that. And we have to do that through massaging their ego, through getting them to open up to us, through getting them to talk about the things that they believe, through making them feel comfortable. And then we can slowly do what we need to do. But you're never going to get your cousin, your colleague, your friend to listen to you if you're trying to have this debate, be like, I'm right, you're wrong, you're wrong. That's 9 times out of 10 not going to work because they're stuck. And they might be very intelligent people, but they're still stuck, unfortunately. But it's a lot more complicated than that. All of this is a lot more complicated. Being caught up in the drag events. Even though that she listed one herself, she swore it would never happen. That's for why kids should see drag. No reply. You were just okay. So Lynn's saying I was discussing the drag thing and being caught up in the drag events. Even though she listed one herself, she swore it's never happened. When I asked her why kids should see drag, she had no reply. Yeah, they do that all the time. I mean, how many of you have seen where you actually get somebody to face it, to face their flawed logic, their hypocrisy? You get them to face it, and then they just shut down. That's the reptile. She has a Ukrainian flag profile. She follows the current thing. Yeah, we support. We support. Oh my God. But yeah, it's a lot that goes into it because we just need to recognize that most people are not going to face reality. And unfortunately, the tools that we're using right now, we're not using the right tools. Like, we're not on an individual level and on like overarching as a society level. We're not really using the right tools to defeat this, because it's unfortunate to see all these people just shut down, not able to recognize things, just crazy. Like, oh my God. Conditioning is a bitch. Yes, it is. So many do not want their belief system shut down. No, that's totally true. They don't. How reptilian can parents be to hand over their children to this delirium? I know. And that's like the worst part is like eventually they just go ahead and sacrifice themselves. It's crazy. Hey, what's up? It's crazy. Is there a critical mass populace needed to recognize reality? I think that there is a critical mass. When it comes to what is seen as normal, we're not trying to make people do everything that we want or get them to all fall in line, but we have to make it so people see consider what's normal or what's socially acceptable. And right now, because so many people are talking about certain things like the Transformers, all this stuff, that's seen as accepted, that's seen as normal, just because people are acknowledging it, unfortunately. The hard truth is that many others will be forced to see the truth and adopt. Yeah, they'll avoid it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of evil energy. If we don't give gastric bypass to anorexic people, we shouldn't cut. We shouldn't cut the the pieces off for the gender confusion. Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly. I mean, that's just such a big, like, if it ends in depopulation, it's a success, I guess, for them. But yeah, so there's a lot going on. And I'm sorry if I was bouncing around too much. It's hard to like explain these things without like addressing these things. Oh, I left this in here. Without addressing these things. It's really hard. It's really hard. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. Thanks. I'm glad you were able to join. There's a lot of moving parts. But I think that once we get the vibe going, you know, and can really steer the conversation and help heal people, because a lot of these people are sick, physically sick. A lot of Americans are being poisoned by the food they eat. We're not a healthy group of people. We're just not. So once we can get these people to start healing themselves, start having dignity, start having just feeling like they're worth it. Because honestly, like think of the type of person who would agree to go into slavery. Okay? Think of the type of person who would agree to own nothing and be happy about it. Do they have a lot of self-respect? No, they don't. They don't have a lot of self-respect. So again, attacking these people who are stuck in their reptile brain and are acting like sheep, attacking them, trying to prove to them that they're wrong, isn't really the most effective thing to do. That's why it's so unfortunate to see, like, on the right, the influencers, it's always like, look how stupid they are. Look how dumb. Look how ridiculous. Oh, we hate this. Oh, we hate that. Eat bugs. Yeah. We have to get them to the state where they're well enough so that even if they do approach this woke mind virus, it's not going to affect them because they're healthy. They have some resistance to it. Yeah, much like driving a car, many different aspects must be considered and attended to. Yeah. Yeah, propaganda is definitely complicated, and it's like driving a car for real. I really appreciate your perspective to navigate difficult conversations with anything you're politically raised. So I was homeschooled, and politically, I only got into politics. I've always been into like understanding freedom. I've always been into that. Like I've always studied that, but I was never into politics, and until politics was into me, and so I had to get involved or pay attention. Yeah. Cult of Hammer. Yeah, there are many parallels to what's happening now and the Cultural Revolution. Exactly. Many parallels. There's a lot of parallels. It's unfortunate. It's the same tactics. Yeah, homeschooling is really important because the indoctrination starts in school. And if you think about it, school is very much trauma-based mind control. So oh, thanks. I'm going to try to do regular ones on Sundays around this time. I was doing Fridays before. Oh, late for you. Yeah, I'm going to see. I'm trying to figure out what's the best time. I think Sunday's a good time. But I'll have to see because it's just about consistency. But being a content creator, you have to be consistent about this. But we have to figure it out. So this has been about an hour. So I'm going to cap it at an hour because I know it's getting late for everybody. And I just talked a lot about a lot of different topics. But I hope it wasn't too hard to follow. I'll get better at it because we really need to figure out a better approach. And not that I'm not condemning anyone else. I'm in California. I don't want to condemn I'm not condemning anyone else who's, in the freedom movement, who's conservative, who's Republican, who's religious, whatever. I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying we need to open up, okay, and have different multi-prong approach, okay? It just can't be, to call people stupid or make fun of them or be more, if it makes sense, be more polarizing, like basically make it seem like there's more differences. We have to have also the approach that, we can come together around it. Thanks for joining, everybody who was joining. Thank you. People don't learn the easy way. Unfortunately, they only learn through suffering. Exactly. Yeah, the sheep, they don't recognize, like, again, they're not going to sit there with foresight. See you. Yeah, Wednesday. Yeah, I'll repost it again. They're not at all. They're not gonna use foresight. That requires energy. That requires higher level thinking. And if you're just thinking good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, then you're not gonna be like, maybe I should do this. Yes, they're not one way to exercise. The more the merrier. Yeah, exactly. Because different messages appeal to different people. That's why it's so important for all of us individually as well to learn the basics about how to influence people. Because if we can get, let's say we get 30%, 40% of the people in our circles to agree with us and to have the basic principles around wanting freedom, about wanting to not go into the Great Reset, about all of these things, if we can get them to do that, hello, a win is a win. So maybe they won't agree on everything. That's true. They might not agree on everything, but we need to not want to go into the Great Reset, to not want to accept the digital currency, to not want to use the social credit system, to, and it goes on and on and on. Like, that's the type of strategy we need. That's the type of higher level thinking that people need to have. Otherwise, we're just going to keep reacting, keep being the party of, oh my God, that's wrong. We might uncover the next Elon Musk. Exactly. Why is that wrong? You can't do that. You're dumb. I'm here. Thanks for waiting for you. Of course, we were waiting this whole time for you. We have to think of the higher level. We have to try to think of what's the biggest goal here. And my saying I always use is, do you want to be right or do you want to win? Because you can be right in a conversation, but you didn't win. You didn't get them to even recognize or perceive what you were saying or learn anything from the conversation. They just know, oh, they shut me down. Oh my God, I hate them. Next time I'm not going to listen to anyone who has any similar beliefs because I need to protect my ego. I don't want to be wrong again. It's too much. After the plague, people must pick up the pieces and rebuild society. Exactly. And another live, I thought I screenshot the quote, but another live, someone saying this is the reconquest of America. And I like that. When all hope is lost. I mean, if you think about it, like, people have gone through a lot more. Like, we're always black-pilled. The higher levels, like, people are black-pilled, but it's like, people have gone through more, and they've had to reconquest they have to take over their own lands again. The higher level can communicate on any of the lower levels too. Sign of intelligence. Yes, that is so true. The higher level can communicate on any of the lower levels also. You have to use that plasticity. Yes, you have to get them to start thinking and asking questions. The goal is not for them to acknowledge that you're right. and be like, oh yeah, oh, you're right. Yeah, actually I am an idiot. I'm disgusting. I look like trash. Like, what? My whole beliefs and lifestyle is wrong. You're right. That's not winning. Open to have a constructive debate, be gentle. Yes, we have to be, and it's not about being passive or like, being like, oh my God, I don't know, I'm insecure. You can be very secure in your beliefs while still getting them to open up to you. And then even in that conversation, start to move your message to appeal to whatever needs they actually have. Like, let's say they're for open borders for some reason. They're for that. And then you can ask them why. Oh, because my this and my that and my mom and whatever stupid bullshit they equate that somehow having open borders is, or they don't recognize the detrimental effects of it. You can start to shift the conversation to appeal to whatever it is that they're saying, so you can, slowly nudge it. It's a lot that has to go on. Do I have a favorite in the Republican Party? Oh, good morning. Yeah. Do I have a favorite? Yeah, I definitely do. Our number one propagandist out there. Also, the idea that we have to go back to the Stone Age is strange, because who has time for all that? I'm not exchanging lap dances for food. I'm sorry. And the more gentle we are with our viewpoints, the more crazy they look. Exactly. They definitely recognize it. Poke them in their axioms, as Jordan Peterson would say. That's a good one. Yeah, Jordan Peterson is a little bit too high level for a lot of people, I feel like. The global reset. I don't know if we conversed it at this point. So many countries are starting to dump the USD. Okay, and? They dumped the USD. Okay, and? We in America we can be self-sufficient. Whatever imperialism that we were focused on before, we don't have to do that. I'm not trying to be, no, Q-Slav says a really good point. I'm not trying to be too silly, but no, I'm just saying we have to think outside the box, and the fact that we need to build a strong nation again. And we're already at an advantage. We already have all this infrastructure. We already have these things. So we need to reimagine. I mean, let them get off the USD and let them go do what they want to do. Okay? We have enough fuel here. We know we have enough intelligence. Like, China stays intellectual property theft. Like, that's literally all they do, and they still can't build anything. Yeah, that's interesting. And Fran Tomato says, people, I mean, these people, they need to, this is their religion. You have to think of it like their religion. They're not going to recognize things. They're just going to keep spreading the good word of how you need to see yourself as a victim. But yeah. Yeah, like calling a 3-year-old across a busy street versus walking the 3-year-old and guiding them. Yeah, we have to really, 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 and Michael, the healthy debate is good, but if they have the intelligence level, if they have the openness to have a real debate, if they're open to having their ideas explored. And we're talking more about people who do not have that capacity, and how you need to just initially approach them. To try to win them over, to try to understand them, to try to ease their ego and appease their ego. And the simplest thing you can do is just ask them questions about themselves. People love talking about themselves. We have the resources to stay on top, but this will take us down a few notches on a global scale. I know, but you know what? What are they doing over there? What are they doing? They're not doing that much. They're not doing that much. But yeah, it will take us down, but we can build ourselves back up. And it is unfortunate it's gotten this bad. It's so sad that it's gotten this bad, but we can't think all hope is lost. We just have to keep going and learn how to talk to people and learn what it means to be a citizen. So yeah, I talked a lot and I hope that some of you were able to get some of the key points and able to digest some of these concepts. I'm going to go a lot more in depth in different videos that I make on, YouTube and locals, and really be uncensored on locals, because a lot of things I have to say, I have to hold myself back. I really have to hold myself back because the social media is not kind. Okay. There is a very distinct narrative that you need to push, and you can't go over that line. So, and I have, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and get myself banned. So I hope you guys can follow me on locals. I'm going to do lives on locals where I can be uncensored. I don't have to dance around these things, and we can actually just go straight for it, because each thing. Let's go, Brandon. He wants 4 more years to finish the job. Yeah, finish the job of destroying the country. But yeah, Trump is really good at his marketing. He's really good at it. Yeah, Cult Hammer. One of the reasons it's so bad is because they marched through the institutions in the last few decades. Yeah, they were very strategic. They knew what was important. They were saying, okay, cool, you guys do what you need to do, but we're going to do this, and we're going to get your kids, and they're going to believe in all this ideology. And I know, and also these people know what people who are on the right, on the conservative side, what they will and won't do, and what they will and won't acknowledge. A lot of people are too afraid, again, to face reality. They're too afraid to face the reality of what's happening. They want to just think that, the left, they're just trying to fight for a good cause, or they're trying to do that. No, they're here to cause chaos. They're here to cause confusion. They're here to disrupt. They don't care about people. They don't care about anybody. They care about power. Thanks so much. But yeah, we need to face reality, guys, and we need to face that this approach is not the best. It could be better, and we need to face that. We need to face those reality and swallow some hard pills and be more positive and talk to people and learn how to talk to people. I mean, that's the only way we can get out of here. Yeah, John, they've been at this for 100 years. It's not overnight, but you know what? The one thing that people forget is that when a system is out of line, there's a lot of things that will self-correct quickly, relatively quickly. It doesn't take that long for people to realize, hey, I'm doing something detrimental to me. Once they get their brains working, they can say, hey, this is not good. I'm going to self-correct. And that's something that's built into us through evolution. So as bad as it is, we have to realize that the self-correcting process can snap back pretty fast. It can. It really, really can, if we have the proper mechanisms in place and the proper tools for people. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for everybody joining. Everybody's comments. Yeah, line some. Thank you. It's going to be pretty no cap. Let's get an interview. I do Rumble, stream Tuesday would be awesome. Sit down and form talk. Yeah, just DM me. But yeah, let's continue this conversation soon, because I'm going to get into it. I want to, for my channel, I've been thinking about what I want to do, and I more want to focus on analyzing the culture war, the right versus left, who does what, if they do it well, how it's working, why it's working, so on and so forth, breaking it down, because it's literally a culture war right now. It's the right has its strategies, the left has its strategies, and unfortunately, the left just invests in a lot more finesse. So ego is one of the reptilian brain, others next time. Yeah, I want to talk next time. I think would be a good topic would be just the whole process of actually extracting information from people. I think that's a good one. And then also recognizing who's open to debate, who's open. Like, how can you tell if you can actually talk to this person? Like, how can you tell if you should approach them? Like, what are the ways to do it? Because you have to use this information. You know that these people have this agenda. You have to be able to use this information and communicate to people. And it doesn't have to be direct. It doesn't have to be, you challenging them again. It can be, hey, did you see this video? Or what did you think of this? Like, oh my God. And it could be, just different pieces of information. So, and also we have to understand just overall how the brain really operates, because it's a very complex thing. It's not easy. It's not easy to think. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. I love all the comments, all of the additions, the analysis. I have that with Uber drivers all the time. Use discernment, baby steps. Yeah. But people don't have discernment, unfortunately. Not everybody has that. So I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to start doing more lives, definitely, because it's so much fun. And DM me. Let me know what you think. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can DM me directly there. I don't think I have my email on YouTube, but you can get in touch with me and let me know. I'll put up a post on YouTube as well. Let me know what topics you think would be good to go over, because ultimately I just think we need to have better strategies, and no one's really teaching people how to use this information. We have all this rage bait. We have all this clickbait. We see all these crazy things happening, but we don't really know what to do about it. We are aware of the World Great Reset. So what do you do other than go get a piece of land and live in a farm somewhere? That can't be the only strategy. It's one strategy, but we need to be able to use other strategies. Oh, nice. Orwell rolls in the grave. Linson's calling that out on YouTube. Orwell rolls in the grave. I'll put that in the comments as well, or the description, because we love documentaries. They're so good. So you guys stay positive. Most of all, stay positive. Know that good will triumph over evil, or we'll all just disintegrate. This is not the worst situation humanity has ever been in. And there's a lot of good people left in the world. So there's a lot left to lose. All right. Thank you guys. Talk to you later. I need to get